In this podcast, I will try and provide a brief history of St. Patrick's, as well as a short survey of the major points of architectural interest in the Basilica. I will start by outlining the building's construction history. Then I will describe different artistic features starting clockwise from the west door. St. Patrick's stands as a testament to Montreal's religious past, and its own history is closely intertwined with the lives, stories, and legacies of Irish immigrants in this city. St. Patrick's is an Irish Catholic church built in 1847 by the Sulpicians, a group of French priests that had earlier built Notre Dame Basilica. The Sulpicians, who were declared lords of the island in 1657, had gained quite a foothold in Montreal by the 1820s, and they exerted their considerable influence on the social and economical sphere of the city, as well as in spiritual matters. They were, at the time, the largest groups of non-diocesan priests in Montreal, and, significantly, they did not have to take on vows of poverty. This last trait allowed them to finance an undertaking such as building St. Patrick's Basilica. Their French roots, moreover, made them nostalgic for the gorgeous French neo-Gothic forms of architectural masterpieces such as Chartres Cathedral and Notre Dame de Paris, and their particular tastes determined their choice of architects, Pierre-Louis Morin and Father Félix Martin, a Jesuit, two men familiar with the style. As the Sulpicians gained in influence and power, the Irish population of Montreal eventually came to flourish. The first Irish Catholics came to Montreal in 1710, and they were less than a dozen. Immigration from Ireland slowly increased, as conditions for Catholics in Ireland grew increasingly intolerable. Educational, political, and economical restrictions motivated a large number of them to move to Canada. Many, though not all of these immigrants, participated in the construction of the Lachine Canal, working up to 16 hours a day. The need for an institution such as St. Patrick's in 1843 became critical. The Old Récollet Church and the chapel of Our Lady of Bon Secours could no longer accommodate the throngs of Irish Catholics, who would gather on Sundays in such large numbers that they spilled out into the street. Though the Basilica now stands at 71 meters, or 233 feet long, by 32 meters, or 105 feet wide. When the Irish congregation first petitioned Bishop Ignace Bourget for the church, they asked for a much smaller building, around 180 feet, or roughly 55 meters, by 90 feet, or roughly 27 meters. The process of accumulating the necessary funds for the building was difficult. Though the Sulpicians were ready to take on the majority of the costs of the construction, the amount which they asked of the Irish immigrants constituted quite a heavy sum for the relatively poor new Irish immigrants. The construction of the Basilica started in 1843. The stone was quarried in the Mile End. Rue des Carrières, near Rosemont, commemorates the road which used to lead up to this quarry. 12 whole pine trees were used for the columns, which have been left intact, though they are now decorated with faux marble. There was some controversy, largely unresolved, about the number of Quebecois contractors hired, as the Irish congregation would have wished to see the church built by Irish men. Allegedly, Bishop Bourget banned the construction of any prominent tower on any church that was not the parish church. Accounts of the church's construction mention that the steeple was built last and in a hurry, so as to make it more difficult for Bourget to stop the architect. This rumor, however, cannot seem to be verified, and it's unclear whether it was invented by the builders of the Basilica or if it's a more recent rumor. The steeple now stands at 69 meters, or 228 feet. The Sulpician in charge of the project, Joseph Vincent Quiblier, insisted that the church only have one spire, which indicates that he wanted the church to be visibly distinguishable from Notre Dame Basilica, which was built roughly 18 years before. To follow the rest of the tour, please make your way to the west door. If you are facing the central altar, it will be on your left. Our first stop around the Basilica will be the Stations of the Cross. They are the oldest visible artwork in the church, dating from 1847, the year of its construction. They were painted by an Italian artist named Petriglia. Unfortunately, not much is known about him. These paintings replaced Québécois painters Antoine Plamondon's Station of the Cross. All of Plamondon's paintings have since then been removed, and 6 of the remaining pieces are now part of the Montreal Museum of Fine Arts collection. Notice on your right the pulpit as you make your way to the front of the basilica. It dates from 1861. This addition to the basilica's decor was in fact quite necessary by the turn of the century, at which point the masses became so well attended that it was difficult to hear the sermon. This pulpit works as a natural microphone. It was moved to its current position in 1893. You should now be coming to the Mary Mother of Perpetual Help altar, located to the left of the sanctuary. This altar was given to us after the demolition of St. Anne's Church in 1970, which was the other major Irish Catholic church in the area, located in Griffintown. The Mary Mother of Perpetual Help Masses have been uninterrupted since the 1920s and still take place every Tuesday at 12:10 and 5:15. Framed by the altar to St. Anne, the large painting above the Mary Mother of Perpetual Help altar is a copy of French artist Eustache Le Sueur's Annunciation, a famous Renaissance painter active during the mid-17th century. This imitation was purchased in 1865 for the sum of $250. The 3 central altars were carved in 1861 by the Paré and Ouellet Company. The saints positioned on the altars are arranged to reflect an iconographic design. The altar to the left is dedicated to St. Anne, patron saint of Quebec, and the one to the right is dedicated to St. Joseph, patron saint of Canada, while the altar to St. Patrick is nestled in between the two, neatly symbolizing a cultural alliance between the Irish and the Quebecois, and the Irish and the Canadians. The carved wooden statues on the high central altar were also supposed to have been chosen for their symbolic value. The very top row is decorated by the Celtic saints. St. Patrick is at the center, and on either of his sides stand Columba of Iona, St. Bridget, St. Margaret of Scotland, and St. Martin of Tours. The tier below them was supposed to have been reserved for the patron saint of Montreal, Mary, Canada's patron, St. Joseph, Quebec's patron, St. Anne, and the patron saint of French Canada, St. John the Baptist. At the very bottom row were to be saints with a local devotional following, such as St. Gabriel, St. Roch, St. Monica, and St. Kieran, the first Irish-born saint. By the time the statues had arrived, however, they were much smaller and more generic-looking than had been expected, and they had to be placed on small wooden pedestals. To the right of the altar to St. Patrick, there is a symbol representing an A drawn on top of an M, painted in gold colors. It is a Sulpician symbol, meaning Hospice Marie, or under the protection of Mary. The paintings above the altars, as well as the stained glass windows and the sanctuary lamp, are all by an artist named Alexander Locke from Brooklyn, New York. His use of opalescent glass is especially distinctive and denotes the particular Tiffany style. Notice the sanctuary lamp's jewelry-like appearance. Locke worked at the Basilica for a period of around 20 years. His contributions include the first paintings included in the Litany of Saints, as well as most of the stained glass windows on display around the Basilica. He also chose the church's distinctive color scheme. At the end of his 20 years of employment by the church, he offered the priest a large rose window at the back of the church, over the organ. The organ was built by Cassavant Frères Limited, inaugurated by Frederick Archer on October 1st and 2nd, 1895, to replace the 31-stop Samuel Russell Warren organ from 1852. The Cassavant Company was in fact one of the first organ companies in North America to produce electrical organs. Their skill allowed the existing organ to be split in two, in such a way as to let the light from the large rose window through. In 1972, Arc Providence of Saint-Hyacinthe in Quebec merged the organ from St. Anthony's in Montreal to the current organ, as the church was being demolished. The organ now has around 2,500 pipes and is still played every day. If you now move towards the relic room, you'll find a second copy of a Renaissance-era painting, framed by the altar to St. Joseph. This one is entitled The Death of St. Joseph. It's quite an unusual subject. It may have been inspired by Giantonio Guardi's own Death of St. Joseph. This painting was also purchased in 1865. If you look to your right, at the bottom of the stained glass window that is located over the relic room, you can see a depiction of Father Dow, one of the Basilica's most renowned and beloved priests. In 1848, Father Dow was appointed as St. Patrick's. Born in Ireland, he was approached by one of St. Patrick's priests, returning to the country in an effort to find a suitable replacement for the priest who had died during the typhus outbreak. In 1851, Dowd founded the St. Patrick's Orphans Asylum with the help of the Grey Nuns. This establishment was unfortunately sorely needed in the Irish community, as the epidemic had left many children parentless. His commitment to charity evidently did not waver, and he founded the St. Bridget's Refuge in 1865. The base of its walls can still be seen in the garden adjacent to the basilica, on La Gauchetière Street. In fact, Dow's popularity and the sheer ambition of his undertakings did not go unnoticed, and Bishop Armand François-Marie de Charbonnel of Toronto attempted to convince Rome to appoint him as a bishop. He refused the honor, however, arguing that he felt his presence was needed at St. Patrick's. In 1868, he then founded a girls' academy. Upon Father Dowd's death in 1881, over 20,000 people visited his remains, notably including 200 priests and 4 bishops. It is said that even the Anglican churches rang their bells on the day of his funeral. I will now ask that you head towards the back of the church. On your way to the east door, notice the small marble crosses under the Stations of the Cross. These crosses were given to us upon the church's consecration in 1906. In order for a church to be consecrated or dedicated, the building's debts have to be completely paid. Before you reach the back of the basilica, take a moment to turn back and notice the small rose windows at the very top of the sanctuary, and the 2 large ones framed by the 2 altars dedicated to St. Anne and St. Joseph. These windows were commissioned by Father Dowd in 1861 and made by the Grey Nuns, an important religious order in Montreal. The nun in charge of the project, Sister Adine Desjardins, had no formal arts training. The windows' sometimes unusual color pairings, reminiscent of kaleidoscopes, suggest this fact. At the very back of the basilica are the Innsbruck stained glass windows, dating back to 1894. They were made and purchased around the same time as the Alexander Lock windows, and had to be brought over from Austria by boat. The two forms of stained glass bear comparison. Locke's style is distinctively American, inspired by the Art Nouveau movement, while the Innsbruck windows approximate the arts and crafts style popular in England at the time. The technique which Locke uses involves taking two panes of glass of different colors and opacity and overlaying them, then etching them in such a way as to create gradients of color and tone. Locke's style is distinctive, and it is informed by the necessity of creating dramatic effects to offset the resulting opacity of the windows which his technique creates. He uses heavy contrasts, and his work often features contrasts between deep purples and yellows, or reds and greens. His compositions, more often than not, have a single focal point, usually on a lone character, who is accentuated by very light tones. Though some of his windows have become somewhat darker with time, they have retained much of their charm. As a contrast, the Innsbruck windows make use of a different technique, hand-painted glass. This technique, while yielding often breathtaking results, is also painstaking. The work has to be meticulous, and it is incredibly time-consuming. Unlike the Locke windows, the Innsbruck stained glass is jewel-like and very light. It relies on details for its effects, rather than on a drama of contrast. The hard work put into these windows, however, was fruitful. It can be hard to tear one's eyes away from the wealth of minuscule textures and complex, layered backgrounds. If you start heading towards the other side of the church, you will notice a series of plaques on the wall, the first of which being a plaque commemorating St. Patrick's promotion to the status of a minor basilica. The church was promoted to the title of minor basilica in 1989 upon request of Cardinal Archbishop Paul Grégoire. To be recognized as a minor basilica, a church has to establish its historical, aesthetic, cultural and spiritual importance. There are, moreover, more than 1,600 minor basilicas across the world, and 4 in Montreal: Mary Queen of the World Cathedral, St. Joseph's Oratory, and Notre Dame Basilica are the 3 other ones. The second plaque, in black, is a memorial to the baptism of renowned Québécois poet Émile Nelligan. Famous for the poem Vaisseau d'Or, Nelligan was a precocious poet, inspired by the symbolists. He was born in 1879, not very far away from here on Rue de la Gauchetière, to an Irish father and a French Catholic mother. He was baptized on Christmas Day. His mother, fearing he would not live through the night, braved the snowstorm to bring her sickly child to St. Patrick's. The next plaque commemorates Thomas D'Arcy McGee's funeral. Father Dow entertained a close bond with Thomas D'Arcy McGee. A pivotal figure in Canadian history, he is nicknamed the Father of the Canadian Confederation, and he was instrumental in the creation of the Dominion of Canada in 1867. The location of his bench is now marked by a Canadian flag. D'Arcy McGee was allegedly murdered by Patrick Whelan, another member of the congregation, over a conflict concerning Fenianism, an Irish nationalist movement. It is now thought that Whelan may have been innocent of outright murder, though it is thought that he was nevertheless involved. Patrick Whelan would have sat 1 seat to the right and 2 seats back from McGee. His widow continued to attend masses at the Basilica until her death, and maintained his innocence. McGee's funeral took place at the Basilica on what would have been his 43rd birthday. It was attended by throngs of heartbroken supporters and dissenters. To the right of the D'Arcy McGee plaque is another plaque commemorating the Sulpician priests as well as the Grey nuns who gave their lives nursing the new Irish immigrants during the typhus epidemic. By the time of the Basilica's completion in 1847, the Great Famine hit its peak in Ireland, prompting between 75,000 and 100,000 new Irish immigrants to come to Quebec that year. 1 in 5 of these died on the way to Montreal, and it is estimated that about 6,000 of these newcomers perished in our city alone. The Black Rock Monument by the entrance of the Victoria Bridge was erected by the bridge workers in remembrance of their deaths. We have now come to the end of the tour. I hope you enjoy the rest of your time at St. Patrick's Basilica. Thanks for listening.